right. Welcome, everyone, to this edition of No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We're presented proudly by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. My name is Ryan McCarthy. I'm one of the hosts of the show. And to my right is a man who's a little under the weather, but he's battling through it tonight, Dustin Henry. Dustin, how are we doing tonight?
I am here. I'm doing all right. Nursing some sort of whatever I have, cold or whatever. Summer cold was not on my bingo card. I did not want to have a cold while going to the beach. I have not gone to the beach yet this summer. I must remedy that. But I'm doing all right. And reviewing Mr. Baseball is going to make me feel better, as well as because I get to chop it up with you about a myriad of topics. How are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty good. I stopped by our friends at Levac and Gaz this afternoon. They were doing remote at Mohawk Chevrolet in Malta. And I live right nearby, so I stopped by, was on their show for a little bit, and I can confirm July 27th for the Saturday brunch. They'll be back on 10 o'clock Eastern time. So
Oh man,
tune in then. And I've got some things coming down the road with Gaz too. So you'll hear first on No Credentials Required. You'll know what they are. So,
man, I'm excited. There's a lot to look forward to. We got guests for the next couple of weeks. You're a hardworking man, the hardest working man in the podcast / writing game. Don't forget, he writes articles over on Belly Up Sports.
That's true.
People, read those.
I haven't written one in a while, but hopefully I got some material coming up, so I might be able to share. But we'll when the time comes, So just want to we'll get that. I'll tell you when another article's up on Belly Up Sports for me. So I got a couple things in the works, but we'll get to them when we get to them. In the meantime, you can find us on social media right down here below: Twitter, Instagram, and the scarcely used TikTok at NoCredsREQ, Facebook.com/NoCredsREQ, YouTube.com/ at NoCredsREQ. And if you notice tonight, we're not on Facebook. We're trying something new. We're trying something new tonight. We are live on Instagram for at least an hour. So apparently there's a setting with StreamYard and Instagram where you only get about an hour's worth of time to stream on Instagram with StreamYard. That's okay. We're trying something new tonight. We just want to see if this is this is also a meta entity. So it's similar to Facebook, but we were trying new things this summer. I know Credentials Required, and one of the things we're doing is streaming live to Instagram. So if you're watching us on Instagram, welcome. But we're also on Twitter and we're on YouTube. So if you wouldn't mind, please do us a favor and like, comment, share, and subscribe to all of our social media channels, which are right down here below. On the podcast side, you can subscribe to the podcast on a myriad of podcast platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Spreaker, Good Pods, iHeart, TuneIn, Pandora, wherever you podcast. Rate and review. Give us a 5-star rate. Give us a 5-star rating. That'll be very, very helpful. And if you be so kind to be on a platform where you can review the podcast, we might even review it on the air. And we're a live show. We are live most Tuesdays at 8:05 Eastern and the occasional Saturday. We've been doing some Saturday shows throughout the summer. We'll have another one this Saturday, and we'll have actually we're gonna have an announcement regarding a little break we're gonna take in August. But in the meantime, we're a live show. Engage with us. We want your comments. And I know, Dustin, you're feeling kind of ill. But that's okay. This sound will always make. I know it makes me feel better when I'm not feeling great. It also makes you feel you feel better too.
It's the best medicine in town.
All right, so we're gonna get things riggedy rolling with our next installment, our newest installment of No Ticket Required. Let's play that. Let's play that beautiful, beautiful bumper. All right, and this week we are reviewing the 1992 baseball movie, obviously titled Mr. Baseball. This movie starring Tom Selleck and let's see, Tom Selleck, Takakura, and Dennis Haysbert, who you may have recognized from another baseball movie.
Yes, I believe I did. It took me a little while to recognize him because it had been a long time since I watched this movie, but then I was like, wait a minute.
You also may recognize him from the Allstate commercials. So,
Oh, yeah, now that you say that, I do. Yeah.
you're in good hands with the hammer. So it's been a while since I've watched this movie. It's been a while since you've watched this movie, and I'm going to give some detail as to why I picked this movie.
Okay.
Part of the reason being is because I started just for one of our random reasons started looking at Japanese baseball in particular. I just dabbling in a little bit because I'm getting back into baseball. I haven't been watching as much these days because we've been doing two shows a week for the last couple of weeks, and we've just been getting at it. We're getting at it. But before that, I just decided, all right, let's learn some more about Japanese baseball. Learn about the franchises. Learn about the teams and the how they became who they are today. Learn about some of the players who have come and gone, both foreign and domestic. And interestingly enough, 1992, Mr. Baseball came out and starred Tom Selleck and his glorious mustache, one of the best mustaches in the biz, in the movie biz for as long as I can remember.
Yeah.
I remember when he started. Remember when he in Magnum PI back in the day, as a private detective in Hawaii, and now they rebooted it with just people.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk about that because Hollywood can't come up with original ideas. They decide to reboot everything.
No, they've got to be safe. They've got to be safe.
Ridiculous. So I decided, all right, I'm getting into Japanese baseball. I'm getting into getting into things, and I decided, you know what? Let's bring back Mr. Baseball. Let's run it back with Mr. Baseball. Let's remember this movie, see what it's all about, see what it's like. Get kind of like a I don't know, let's say a first-hand account, but just a fictional account of actual true stories of some baseball players who are American, and they're I believe, if I remember correctly, you're allowed, I think, 2 or 3 in Japanese professional baseball, the NPB. You're allowed, I think, it's 2 or 3 foreign players per team. The rest of them have to be domestic. Otherwise, they can come from the United States, Dominican Republic, Mexico, South Korea, the real Korea. That's right, North Korea. I'm talking to you.
But we hope you're not watching.
They ain't watching this. Come on.
The innocent North Koreans cannot watch because of their country's leadership, and I don't think I'm saying anything controversial about that.
Kim Jong-un, we know you're a big fan.
We hope this is the one case where I say we hope you're not. Please don't watch our show. We know you like to watch American movies, and you have your big DVD collection or whatever. Or that might have been your dad. But either way, the whole Kim dynasty, don't watch the show.
Lest we get an invite like Dennis Rodman or Kim Jong-un's booth
or
birthday.
Steven Seagal.
Have you seen that movie?
Yeah. Well, I shouldn't say I've seen it. I've seen parts of it because a couple of years ago, another podcast that I listened to, Your Mom's House, they got a hold of some clips from that, and they went in on it. I'll tell you that.
The documentary is called Dennis Rodman's Big Bang in Pyongyang. That's the documentary, and
Oh man.
it's just as nuts as you can believe.
Oh yeah, yeah. I can't quote some of the stuff he says in it.
Neither can I. Neither can I. But anyway, let's get into this. Let's get into this movie, Dustin. I know it's been a hot minute since you've watched this movie.
Yeah.
It's been a while since I've watched this movie. It's actually one of my favorite movies from the 1990s. So let's get into it. I mean, you were relatively, I should probably what 10 years old when this movie, not even
Yeah.
10 years old when this movie came out.
Yeah,
So,
9 years old, 9 years old, depending on when it released. And in a weird bit of synergy, I was like, I wonder if he planned this because for years convinced I was convinced that A League of Their Own came out like a year later than it did. But if memory serves, Ryan, from last year's review, didn't League of Their Own come out in 92 as well? Or do I have that wrong? I'm pretty sure it did. We're going to have to do some real time research.
I'm actually doing some research right now and actually came out the same year.
Yeah, I thought it did, and I'm thinking, Ryan, he's thinking about moves before we got two baseball movies on two different editions of no credentials required, no ticket required that came out the same year.
You think I'm gonna zig when I zag?
It's a little that's some 4D chess right there. Now, I will lead off by saying that in my opinion, A League of Their Own is a little bit better version of a baseball movie than Mr. Baseball. But I do have to say, I went into this movie and I'm like, I haven't seen this movie since I'm a kid pretty much, or I'm home, rewatching it on the Superstation probably back in the day, played this quite a bit.
Superstation TV, yes.
Or maybe on Dinner and a Movie with Paul and Annabelle, I think it was. But anyway, so I was pleasantly surprised by this movie. This movie did grab me. It's very early 90s, very late 80s, early 90s. There is some humor in this movie that they could not get away with today, for sure. But I have to say, Tom Selleck's charm goes a long way in this movie because in the beginning, you are not supposed to root for this man. He is being disrespectful. He is being a jerk. He is not. He's being an a-hole. He's intentionally disrespecting the Japanese culture, and you can tell he doesn't want to be there. But because of his charm, he doesn't do it in a way that makes you completely hate him. You're already rooting for this guy to turn it around. And because it's a feel-good sports movie, spoiler alert, he does. And I liked the cast in this movie. I liked the addition of the All-State man. He was great because he was kind of trying to show him the ropes. He's saying, "Hey, don't do that." And a lot of the stuff I did not know. See, because I know you've been going down the rabbit hole on Japanese baseball.
Yep.
I did not know some of the differences that a pitcher will tip their hat if they hit a batter to show, hey, I didn't mean that. I didn't know that games, according to this movie, could end in ties. I didn't know that according to this movie, and I find it very believable that they are not supposed to spit on the mound, or on anywhere on the field, because it's disrespectful. And then I did kind of empathize with Jake. He's a fish out of water at the beginning of this movie. It doesn't excuse his actions, but he is a fish out of water. And I tried to wonder how I would be if I was heading over to Japan. Their culture is one that is very interesting to me, but it is very different from ours. There's some key differences, and I think almost anyone would be a fish out of water in that environment going in, especially when you're used to playing for the New York Yankees. And no disrespect to Japanese baseball, this is a downgrade. There's no way to cut it. But I think what this movie teaches you is that the Japanese baseball, it's kind of like learning European basketball. It's a separate game. You have to figure out the differences. Like you've explained to me with the CFL versus the NFL, there are key differences that you have to learn in order to be successful. And there's a pitch that Tom Selleck can't really hit.
Shuto.
Yeah, the Shuto pitch. I could not
equalizer.
I could not remember it. And this movie did inject some comedy. There were some parts where I laughed, particularly when He says, "What's next? Is somebody going to have to show me how to take a crap?" And then he walks into the bathroom and he goes, "I need someone to show me how to take a
Hey Max, I think I need someone to help me learn to teach me how to take a crap.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was good. The music, they went for this music hard, in a
Yeah.
world where it's a lot of licensed music now, or like Hans Zimmer or John Williams has like a stranglehold. I love John Williams scores. I love Hans Zimmer scores. This is no disrespect, but this is of an era where it's almost like they went to somebody, and this is not meant as a dig. It brought a different feel to the movie. It's almost like they went to somebody and they're like, "Hey, Jerry, you think you could put a score together for us with your keyboard and maybe some synth bass?" And
Yeah.
he's like, "Yeah, sure. I'll whip it right up." And it worked for me. It worked for me. And I did like a lot of the performances, the manager particularly, and Hiroko. I am all for Hiroko. Big fan of Hiroko. I might need to look up the actress and watch some more movies, because I thought her performance was very um uh it felt real to me. And
Well,
unlike
Dustin,
Goon, yeah.
I hate to disappoint you.
Oh no.
This was only one of 3 movies that she acted in,
Oh boy. Okay.
and 2 of them were primarily Japanese.
Okay.
Actually no, this is the only movie that she's acted in.
Oh wow.
The
Okay. All right.
At
So,
least in the mainstream.
mhm,
The other
mhm.
2 were direct to video.
Oh,
No, nothing bad.
yeah,
Nothing
no,
bad.
but that those are some classics, It's like
Yes,
Machete 4 on video, and it's like, I didn't even know there was a 4. But
the first one being Wangan Midnight Final GTR Dentetsu Act 1 and Act 2, both released in 1994. But the actress's
okay.
name is Aya Takanashi.
Yes, I did, look up. I tried to use, because I rented this movie on Amazon, and I tried to
Yeah.
use the pause button, because I'm like, "Who are these people?" And
Who are these people?
it didn't, it failed me. So I do keep it old school and look at the credits after, to figure out. And I did do the Google search as well. But her performance felt very like, unlike Goon, where I didn't buy the love story B plot. This,
Mhm.
of course, you knew they were gonna fall in love, but I bought it. It felt authentic for me. And at the ending where she shows up, I was very happy to see that she was in the stands. And the twist of this movie that I had forgotten was that the manager was her father. That was a nice touch. So overall, I had a good time with this movie. It's
Mhm.
definitely from a different era. You can definitely tell. And I think the nostalgia was working for me. And like I
Yeah.
said, Tom Selleck, you root for his transformation and his acclimation to the team, because he is charming. There is no denying that he is charming. Let me just say, his agent's ponytail, atrocious, atrocious. And I swear, this
Uh,
is no disrespect to anybody with ponytails, but ponytails were like the 90s signal for like sleaze. Like, immediately you're like, okay, we're not going to trust this guy because he's got a ponytail. You look at like Kindergarten Cop, Crisp had a ponytail. You look at this movie, that Snake Agent, he had a ponytail. You look at some other, movies, which I can't think of right now, ponytail. And then you got Steven Seagal, you know, keep your thoughts, think what you want, but I make a compelling case. In the 90s, they were trying to tell you something about the ponytail. But let's get your thoughts on this movie. I know that you have an appreciation for this movie, and
yes. Yes.
it was your first time revisiting it in a long time. And let
Mhm.
me say, when I hand it over to you, I would love to enjoy a nice bowl of ramen in the stands. I'm all for that.
Dude, what's funny was that after the movie, I actually went back to Duolingo because when we were on our last big vacation to Outer Banks in 2022, your uncle Al introduced me to Duolingo because he was taking Spanish,
Yep.
or he's like doing Spanish lessons. He's still doing the lessons.
Yep.
To
He's
his
still
credit,
there.
2 years later, he's still doing the lessons. And I got inspired to do some language learning on my own. So I decided to go back on Duolingo, and I'm trying some Japanese. So right now I'm learning some of the basic characters, learning some basic words, none of which I can remember at the top of my head right now. But it's interesting. Like one of the first lessons they teach you is like how to say sushi. It's like, it's basic words. And what's interesting is that they had that one scene in the movie when Jack Elliot is, in a sense, after he got suspended indefinitely for charging the mound after he got hit by a pitch.
Mm-hmm.
And what's interesting is that Max, played by Dennis Haysbert, who also plays Jose Serrano in Major League and Major League 2, he says, the one thing I didn't miss about playing in the States is playing with hot shots like you. And yeah, throughout the first half of the movie, Jack Elliot is the stereotypical baseball, like big time professional athlete of that era, who only gave a crap about himself, was mostly interested in his career and his career and his alone. What's interesting is that he used this was supposed to be during the 1992 spring training that he goes over, or 1991 or whatever. And he said, "Well, you're 4 years removed from a World Series MVP." Well, the Yankees didn't go to the World Series in the 1980s at all. In fact, they went to the World Series once and they lost. They lost to the Los Angeles Dodgers in 6 games in 1981. That was the only World Series appearance they made that decade. But it was just interesting to see. Well, the one thing you got to see was Frank Thomas in the New York Yankees uniform for the first and only time, and it was in a movie.
Was he the rookie? Was he the rookie that was dominating in the batting cage? Okay.
He was the rookie. I'm trying to remember his name off. Ricky Davis.
Yep. Okay.
Ricky Davis was his name. He's like, yeah, it's like anybody can hit that. Anybody can pull a ball 400 feet, and he hit it towards dead center 500 feet in batting practice. And he's like, oh, yikes. So
yeah. And then he's like, that's 498 or something. Yeah. He says like a little line like that, a little throwaway.
Yeah. And then he gets to Japan. He's like, I can piss over that fence. And I did the research for typical dimensions in a Japanese baseball ballpark. So typical dimensions for a Japanese baseball ballpark, they're 309 to 320 down the lines, 340 to 350 to straight right or left, 360 to 365 in the gaps, and 400 to dead center.
Okay. So they're not, they're not much smaller,
No.
400 to dead center. There are some ballparks in the U.S. that still have that dimension, isn't there?
Yes.
I think
Yankee Stadium is 408 to dead center. I remember that.
Yep.
Because it kept pretty much the same dimensions when they built the new ballpark and opened the new ballpark in 2009. It kept all the same dimensions. They didn't want to ruin the dimensions, or they didn't want to make it like when the Padres moved from Jack Murphy Stadium.
Oh my goodness.
Qualcomm Park.
Yeah.
Before they moved over to Petco Park, they changed the dimensions when went to Petco Park and made it more pitcher friendly. And it's still, as far as I know today, it's still one of the most pitcher friendly ballparks in the United States.
Oh yeah.
So
they've modified it a bit, but it still is favorable to pitchers.
Yeah.
That is on my ballpark list of ballparks to go see. Go back in the archives and check out our version of the list where Ryan and I go through baseball stadiums we want to visit.
Yep. So I was looking at IMDb, looking through some of the facts, and it does say, and this is a true. And actually, the scene in the movie where the pitchers refused to pitch to Jack Elliot was actually based on something that did happen back in the 1980s, and they don't want him to break the consecutive the streak for the home run record. And you see that one scene where Jack Elliot turns his bat the other way around as a sign of protest. That came from and according to IMDb, this came from a real life incident a few years before the movie in the NPB.
Oh,
when Hanshin Tigers slugger Randy Bass, I've been talking about him the last couple months, was on the verge of breaking the single season home run record set by Sadaharu O. and pitchers refused to pitch to him. Reportedly, uh, pitchers were going to be fined $1,000 for every strike they threw Randy Bass.
Okay, so that's right. The amount's the same too. Because the first baseman on the Giants says the same thing. He's like, yeah, they're not going to throw you anything, especially with $1,000 fine for each pitch.
Yep.
So,
yeah, and you notice the one team in that movie, the first team they're playing that have the W on their caps, that was the Yokohama Tayo Whales. They are now, and actually there are four actual teams featured in this movie. The Chunichi Dragons, which is Jack's team. They're very much modeled after the LA Dodgers and the Boston Dodgers. The Yomiuri Tokyo Giants, who are like the Yankees of Japanese baseball. You hear the references to them early in the film when they say, yeah, we're gonna get the crap kicked out of us by the Giants again. That was the one team that they're trying to beat. They're trying to overcome in the standings. They do, and it's a fun fact, they do play in the same league. They play in the Central League of Japanese of the MPB. The other teams were the Hiroshima Toyo Carp and the Yokohama Tayo Whales, who are no longer the Tayo Whales. They're now the Yokohama DNA Bay Stars.
Okay. All right. I'm looking up because I'm trying to remember if Hideki Matsui played for the Giants.
Yes, he did.
That's what I thought. I thought, because that's what I was going to say. That's where I remember, because that's the team. I mean, I feel bad saying this, but I know the Toronto Argonauts because they always went after, like, Ricky Williams signed there. And, so it was the same thing, because I remember when Hideki was brought over, it was a big deal. And he is not the only Hideki to be brought over by the Yankees from Japanese baseball. The other one, though, Hideki Irabu,
didn't work out.
Didn't go so well.
No, he did not. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us in this realm. So,
oh, geez, I did not know that.
Yeah, he passed away a few years ago. So, but yeah, there's some interesting facts on the IMDb page. Like, Jack Elliot is referred to as Mr. Baseball. Jack Elliot played first base. Don Mattingly played first base. Don Mattingly is known as Donnie Baseball.
Donnie Baseball,
so
yeah.
That was probably the when the writers of the film made that film. It's probably I suspect that he's probably a Yankee fan. So
I would say
he was that was the inspiration for the film.
Mm-hmm.
And as I noted before, I think I noted this last week. While preparing for the movie, Tom Selleck spent time with the Detroit Tigers during 1991 spring training, was even brought into a game as a late inning pinch hitter, managing to foul off one pitch before striking out.
That's funny, because when I started Googling the cast for this movie and certain things to figure things out, one of the top Googled questions was Tom Selleck a Detroit Tiger?
Well, what's interesting is you see kind of the one of the goofs in the movie, or one of the editing goofs, was that during his training session, after he was suspended, he's doing the workout with Ichiyama. He's supposedly playing for he's got Yankees unit gear on, but in one scene you can clearly see the Detroit Tigers pants, the colors in his pants that he's wearing. So he probably took that home from his time at spring training as a Detroit Tiger. And it's on a Magnum PI, he's wearing a Detroit Tigers ball cap.
Oh yeah, he always was, along with the shortest shorts in the business.
Hey man, take wrong with those shorts.
Yeah,
those legs, come on.
That's rough. But I will say this movie too, and let me know if it worked for you. But yeah, I know at this point it's cliche, but it works for me almost every time. The sports movie's got to be pretty bad for it not to work. The sports training montage, it's a thing. There's a reason that South Park spoofed it, but it works.
Gotta have a montage. Sports training montage.
Yeah.
gosh.
But I'm like, I'm sitting on my couch. I'm like, he's doing it. He finally figures it out. He's going to put in the work. He's going to be good. He's running up and down the stairs, and I did like when he keeps asking. He's like, I want to hit, and the manager says,
Hmm.
you're not ready to hit.
Yep.
Hiroko's dad is like, Hiroko's dad says, you're not ready to hit, and
Nope.
he keeps telling him, and then he finally he says, I want to hit baseballs, where he's got him hitting golf balls with a
Yep.
baseball bat. And he says, I want to
Because
hit
you have a
golf
hole
balls.
in your swing.
Yep.
Everybody can see it except for you.
Yeah.
Even his
Yep.
dad said, "Yeah, you have a hole in
Oh
your
yeah, the
swing."
grandpa. Yeah,
The
grandpa
first
laid it
meeting they
on him.
have with Hiroko's grandpa is he says he basically says, "You have a hole in your swing." And he's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, come on, you too."
Yeah. But it reminded me of, the many other sports montages, and it reminded me of a movie that we will have to put on a future edition of No Credential or No Ticket Required, and that is Cool Runnings, man. We
Yes.
gotta we gotta be putting that on there.
Well, I mean, we could play it. We could watch it as a bonus episode now because it's so freaking hot in New York. New York. I mean, there's excessive heat warnings basically all the way up and down the eastern seaboard right now. But
Yes.
people will say, "Oh man, it's so hot. This is so hot. Why is it so hot?" And it's like it's July.
Yeah.
It's gonna be hot in July.
Yeah.
Anywho,
It's gonna be hot, and you know what?
yeah.
Those same people will be complaining when the pendulum swings back around.
Huh?
I will take this heat every day. This is my
Yep.
favorite time of year because of the length of the days.
Yep. As
That's
long as
why.
it's by the beach. I'm
Oh
okay with
yeah.
it by the beach, but like in my neighborhood, it's like nah, no, thank you. But
Mhm.
no, going back to this movie, I've always been a big fan of this movie. I mean, it's the typical '90s formula
Yeah.
for a movie like this. Is the main character trying to find his way through, and in this sense, he's trying to find a way through distinct cultural differences. It's the hotshot American trying to find his way through a country that he's not familiar with. He's trying to get around. He's got an interpreter who's trying to save his face
Yep.
uh, because he's such a wisecracking guy. He's just trying to save his face because of PR. Because it's bad PR if he interprets the thing that he wants him to say.
Hmm.
Then he's doing then because these teams, Japanese baseball teams, are owned by corporations. They're not owned by like in the United States, they're not owned by individual managers.
Yeah.
They're owned by corporations. So the name of the company is featured in the team name, like the Tokyo Yomiuri Giants.
Mhm.
Yomiuri is one of the largest newspaper distributors in all of Japan. The Chunichi Giants, the Chunichi Dragons. They are. Let's see. I think they're one of the only teams. Bear with me just a moment here.
Yeah.
Live research, folks. Live research.
And we do have a couple examples of that in American baseball that I remember, but the teams' names were not a part of it. I remember the Chicago Cubs for a time were owned by the Chicago Tribune, if I remember
Yes.
correctly. And then the Seattle Mariners, and I don't know why I remember this, but in the 90s specifically, I believe Nintendo owned a piece of the
Yes.
Seattle Mariners, but they were not called the Seattle Nintendo Mariners or anything like that.
Actually, I was wrong. The Chunichi Dragons are owned by one businessman. They're
Oh, okay.
Uichiro Oshiyama is the primary owner of the Chunichi Dragons. So the one I think they're one of the only team or one of the only teams in in the NPB who don't have like a company in the team name. The Hanshin Tigers, they were based off of an electric company or transportation company. Toyo, tire company. Yakult is a yogurt company. DENA, they're a software company. Yomiuri, again, as I mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
they are a
Newspaper.
newspaper conglomerate. Lotte, giant shopping conglomerate. SoftBank, obvious.
Yeah.
So the one, and you'll see one of the most interesting names in the baseball world is the Hokkaido Nippon Ham Fighters. Now it's Nippon Ham. It's Nippon, not Ham Fighters. It's Nippon Ham. Nippon Ham is the company that owns the Fighters. Then you have the Oryx Buffaloes. Oryx is a software company. Seibu, they own a whole bunch of stuff. I think they're a construction conglomerate. And Rakuten, who owns the Tohoku Rakuten Golden Eagles, who a former New York Yankee, Masahiro Tanaka, played for them.
Okay.
And went back to Japan and played for them again after the 2020 season. So, but yeah, it's just interesting that, going back to my original point, he's got to do all these things. He's got to make commercials because he's technically he's an employee of a company. He's not an employee of he's not doing it out of his own free will. He's doing it because he's contracted to do so. And then he's got to learn how to get along with his teammates, his manager. Again, he can't smoke. He's smoking a cigar in the subway.
Yeah, that's
subway
a big
car,
no-no.
which is a huge no-no. And then you got to learn how to interact with people on an individual level with Hiroko. Again, big fan.
Yeah, huge fan of Hiroko. Shout out to Hiroko. We hope you're watching.
Shout out to Hiroko. We hope you're watching. And then just try to be a good teammate and try to be somebody who is sensitive to, and who's not only sensitive to the culture that he's in, but also is willing to absorb himself into that same culture.
Yes. And also towards the end, he mentors some of the other players, and it parlays into spoiler alert, but this movie is very old, and you should watch this before watching our review if you're watching live, or you can mute me until I tap my head. I'll tap my head when we're out. Sorry, podcast listeners, I got nothing for you. But
skip ahead.
He does end up being a coach for the Detroit Tigers at the end. So that mentorship of the Japanese players pays off when he finally buys in. And the thing that I respect about this movie is it's not just Jack Elliot assimilating to the Japanese way of doing things and playing the game. But the manager, to his credit, he also takes a page out of Jack Elliott's book when Jack tries to tell him, relax. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is when he gets him that bottle of Johnny Walker Black. Yep. Come on, Jack. You can do better on your salary in Japan there.
But he's getting Johnny Walker Green.
Yeah. And he says there's a tradition where I can say whatever I want to my boss, and you can't do anything about it. So he tells him, he said, you got to let these guys relax. Baseball is supposed to be fun. These guys are wound very tight. And he said, one of the key things, he says, let some of your guys pitch their way out of trouble sometimes. They got to learn how to do it. So I like how both men gave a little bit. That was the message of the movie, I think, was a little bit of respect and compromise on both sides.
Yeah, absolutely. It's growing. It's part of growing as a human being. You gotta give, and you gotta take. You gotta give as much as you could take. As you're allowed to take. It's just got balance. It's got to balance out. Gotta balance things out. All right, before we reveal our next movie for No Ticket Required, let's go over the power rankings. Dustin, where does this movie rank in your 2024 summer movie rankings for No Ticket Required?
All right, so here's where we are. Number 1 is still Iron Claw. Number 2, after an internal debate with myself, is still Rush. Number 3 is I, Tonya. Number 4 is Mr. Baseball. This is where Mr. Baseball slots in for me. Number 5 is Boys in the Boat. Number 6 is Goon for me.
All right. So, number 1, still Iron Claw.
Yep.
Number 2, Rush. Number 3, Mr. Baseball.
Okay.
Mr. Baseball. But a close 4, I, Tanya, 5, Goon, 6, Boys in the Boat.
So we basically have 2 movies swapped so far.
So far. And hey, these rankings are subjective. So if you have your own, reveal them to us on social media. Let us know what they are. But next week, we're going to be reviewing The Program. And The Program is based on, it's starring James Caan, who passed away a couple of years ago, Craig Schaefer, Omar Epps, Halle Berry, Christy Swanson. Another one of these 90s movies that kind of, if you're somebody who grew up in the 90s, it'll bring you back. For somebody who's never seen The Program before, I want to say, I'm not going to say you'll be shocked, but you'll be going, okay, I guess this is how college football worked in the 90s.
Yeah, it tackles some things.
Yes, it does. And we'll have a special guest next week, and I'm going to reveal to you who that is in this particular PSA.
The following is a public service announcement from Wise El Jefe,
Boston.
This has been a public service announcement from Wise El Jefe.
Oh man, it's going to be great. It's going to be great to talk with Wise about this movie. Can't wait.
I said his name and now he'll probably appear.
Yes,
very much Joe Hendry. Say his name and he'll appear. But no, we're excited to have. He wanted to be on the show when I told my fellow brothers in broadcasting what we're going to do for our summer movies. Wise immediately said, "I want to come on when you're reviewing The Program." I said, "Absolutely, you're more than welcome to come on." And I let them know today. I'm like, "Hey, next week, be ready. We're reviewing The Program." So we're going to do that next week for No Ticket Required. And this has been the latest edition of No Ticket Required. All right. And before we take our commercial break, take a quick trip to the comments section. Drew Willingham, D. Willie, our good buddy, saying, "What's up, fellas? What's going on, Drew?" He's taking I believe he's probably on break from his work.
Yeah. Thanks for spending your break with us.
Yeah. Frank Thomas on the Yankees. Laugh emoji. Yep. As I said, the first and only time you see him in the Yankees uniform. He'll never be in the Yankees uniform again. He spent his career with the White Sox, the Blue Jays, and I believe the Oakland A's.
Yes, I believe you are right. That was his last stop, I believe.
For a cup of coffee.
Yeah, and while we say it, Drew, did you have any Franklin sports apparel? Shout out to Franklin Sports Apparel. I had completely forgot about them. I had batting gloves when I stunk it up on the Little League field. My batting gloves were Franklin, and they were blue and white. It all came flooding back to me as soon as I saw that Franklin Sports Apparel shirt.
That's right. That's right. I think I think Don Mattingly wore Franklin's.
That's probably why I wore Franklin. He is my favorite Yankee after all.
Let's see. Let me just verify that.
Oh man, this is real-time research on the Franklin apparel.
I'm pretty sure he did wear Franklin apparel. Drew says, "Can we say Mr. Baseball was a prequel of Trevor Bauer today?" I'm going to say not to the extreme that Trevor Bauer is.
Yeah. Trevor Bauer, old TB.
Good old Dave saying good evening.
Good evening, sir.
With the German spelling of good. And Playmaker joining us quickly. He says, "Ryan, Dustin, how's it going, fellas? Doing pretty good. We just reviewed Mr. Baseball. So we're going to chat up about a couple more topics before we get out of here. But before we do that, let's take our first and only commercial break. We come back, we're going to talk Hard Knocks, Offseason.
Oh, yeah.
Very interesting concept. All right. We'll be back in just a moment. You are tuned in to No Credentials Required.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, everyone. It's Ryan from No Credentials Required to talk to you about one of our newest partners at Belly Up Sports, SeatGeek. Yeah, live sports is great on television, but the feeling of being at the arena is a priceless experience. That's why our friends at SeatGeek are there to help you find the best tickets at the best prices. Not only can you get tickets to sporting events, but you can also get tickets to concerts, comedy shows, musicals, and more. Search for your desired event now at SeatGeek.com, enter promo code BellyUpSports at checkout, and you save $20 off your first purchase. SeatGeek. Life's an event. We have the tickets. All right, that's right. SeatGeek is one of our premier sponsors at Belly Up Sports. And I just found out the other day from my niece Bella, she's a hockey fan.
Oh.
And she's a fan of my New Jersey Devils. Takes right after her uncle, and her favorite player is Jack Hughes. So Jack Hughes, I know you're a big fan. I know you're watching, recovering from shoulder surgery. My niece is a big fan of yours. So any signed jersey, you can send. Shout out to Jack anytime you want to send her a free jersey before she goes off to college. She'll put it in her dorm. I'll put it up there. All right. Anyway, SeatGeek. So if we're talking actually this weekend we had our first uncle date in a while. We went to Mosu in Colony. Had ourselves a couple hours of Korean barbecue. We stuffed our faces with all the meats, all of them. And we talked about possibly going to a hockey game this coming season. So she'll be going out to college in Rochester. So probably have to wait until spring break or extended break for us to go to a game. But thinking about using SeatGeek, getting ourselves a discount on some tickets. So, we're talking hockey season right now because the schedule just came out last week, and we talked about free agency with our respective teams last week. But schedule's out for NHL. Not only is NHL schedule is out, NFL tickets coming soon, preseason and regular season. Major League Baseball, it's the season. It's coming up in the All-Star break. Trade deadline's pretty soon. And NBA, but who cares about them? But not only you get sporting events, but you also get concerts, movies,
comedy shows,
plays, whatever requires a box office seat. You can get it at SeatGeek.com. They also have that very unique system where they have the best prices. I'll show you where the best prices are in which section, so you can get the best seat for your money. And again, save $20 off your purchase of $50 or more by using promo code BellyUpSports at checkout. That's SeatGeek.com. Use promo code BellyUpSports for that discount today. All right. Hard Knocks Offseason Episode 1 was last Tuesday. The second episode is tonight at, I believe it's 10 o'clock Eastern, but I'll be watching on replay. This was a very interesting. When this concept came out, I'm just sitting there going, "Really, off season? We're gonna look inside the offices of the GMs and coaches and the scouting and all this, and it's like, this is kind of boring." But I watched episode 1 tonight before we came on the air, and I gotta say, this is pretty intriguing stuff, and I was kind of wanting more because it's kind of like that with Hard Knocks. Like it's depends on who whichever team they're going with for that season, or for that, whether it be the preseason or regular season. Now at the off season, you had some very intriguing storylines coming into the Giants off season. This is where, and we already know what happened because free agency's gone on. We know about the trade they made with the Carolina Panthers. We know all the contract situation with Daniel Jones and his offseason his rehab from a torn ACL. But let's talk about this. Let's go into this episode a little bit, Dustin. What's your impression of episode 1 of Hard Knocks offseason with the New York Giants?
Okay, I am in on this. I was in 100% when I realized it was going to be covering the front office and the GMs. Now, you're not going to be getting like a full all access. The show is edited. The show is, it's put together for TV. So we have to take everything with a grain of salt. But I loved watching those guys, especially when Joe Shen, is that how you say the
Joe
Giants?
Shane?
Oh, Joe Shane, my apologies. Especially when Joe Shane and his team we're going through the position by position players and needs. That was very nice to hear them like break down the contract and say where we are with the cap, he would be impossible to get. We can't get him, but we'd love to pair him with. They were talking about Chris Jones, specifically pairing him with Dexter Holland or Dexter. It's not Dexter Holland. That's the Offspring's lead singer, but with Dexter, their biggest
Dexter Lawrence.
yeah, Dexter Lawrence. Oh my God, I couldn't come up with it. But when they were talking about pairing, the potential pairing that could be, and they were going through the running backs, and I have to say, hats off to Joe in this, because the way the show painted it, and again, we have to take it with a grain of salt. First off, they focused a lot on PB&J in the beginning, a lot of focus on the PB&J.
Can't go wrong with a good PB&J.
Yeah, but
here's a question, Dustin.
Yeah,
when you do your PB, what's your preferred peanut butter for PB&J? Your preferred jelly for PB&J? What kind of bread for PB&J? And do you prefer your bread room temperature or out of the fridge?
Okay, so for me, there's a couple different answers for me. I'm not the biggest fan of PB&Js. I know that's sacrilege, but it's been a long time since I've had them. So I think when I was a little kid, I wasn't a big fan of the crust. I wasn't. So maybe I should give Uncrustables a shot. However, I do have, as with almost most things, I have thoughts on this. So if it is an open-faced PB&J with no top, it needs to be toasted. And it needs to have peanut butter. For me, this is a very nostalgic pick for me. I'm not saying it's the best peanut butter, but it's the peanut butter I grew up with, and it's Peter Pan. I'm going Peter Pan peanut butter the whole way. And my jam, number one with a bullet, which doesn't make sense because I don't really like strawberries, but my number one jam for a PB&J is a strawberries jam. I'm going to take this back to the 90s. Give me a Smucker's on it. Okay. But it's gotta be toasted if it's open faced. If it is the traditional sandwich with the hat on top, you got the jelly on one side, the peanut butter on the other. It's got to be white bread. It's got to be white bread for me. What about you, sir? And I will take it room temperature.
All right. I'm thinking long and hard about this, and by long and hard, I'd probably say about a minute. Peanut butter, gotta be Skippy.
Okay, all right.
I hate Jif is disgusting.
Both of us, I guess our moms were not choosy moms because they did not choose Jif.
No. And I don't understand the logic of people who choose Jif over Skippy. I just don't understand.
We got to have a peanut butter sampling now.
The Skip, yeah. Well, I just tried all natural peanut butter the other day, and that's a whole nother.
Oh, you got to stir that up.
Oh, you got to stir it up, and you got to watch out for the oil, the loose oil. I just learned that the hard way the other day. So it's got to be Skippy, smooth.
All right.
Chunky every once in a while.
I go with smooth as well, so I'm with you there.
Welch's grape jelly.
Okay.
And I like it's the one bread type of bread that's been kind of grown on me over the past couple of years. 12 grain bread.
Oh.
And it's got to be right out the fridge.
Okay, got you.
But yes, white bread is a classic. Wheat bread is a classic, especially the split top wheat or split top white, like when we were kids.
Oh yeah.
Although I will say this, peanut butter on a toasted sesame bagel, you cannot go wrong.
I'll give that a shot.
Gotta give it a shot.
My dad was a big peanut butter on bagel fan back in the day, except he would put it on cinnamon raisin. That always creeped me out.
I've had peanut butter on blueberry bagels. That's pretty decent.
Yeah, you could do that. I'm a big butter on bagels fan. And people look at me sideways. They're like, no, cream cheese. I'm like, no, it's bread, dude.
No. and the reason why I say toasted sesame bagel with peanut butter is it tastes like a sesame stick. That's why. Good. And Dave chimes in. He says white bread out the cabinet. PB&J. Peanut butter has to be crunchy. I know, controversial. Jam over jelly. Okay.
Hey, no controversy there.
There's no wrong way for a peanut butter and jelly sandwich unless it's Jif. That's just
Now, Dave, if you had said marmalade, I might have to be like, "Are you a grandpa?" Or if you went a next step and you're like, "Oh, I put some raspberry preserves on it,"
oh God. It's funny. One peanut butter sandwich take. This is pretty interesting. I watched a documentary. I watched a movie about strongmen, and Brian Shaw, one of the strongest men in the world, the strongest man on earth, according to his competition last year, his very last professional competition. What he would do between competitions, between different elements of each competition, he did a peanut butter and honey sandwich.
Oh, I'm
I
not
tried
mad at
it.
it.
I tried it. Not a fan.
Not a fan. All right.
Not a
All
fan.
right.
But yes,
I trust your palate.
thank you. Joe Shane peanut butter and jelly sandwich on the way to work. It's always a power move right there. It's a power move. And I if I were ever to ask him the opportunity, if I had the opportunity to ask him, I'd ask him the same thing. What's your preferred peanut butter? What's your preferred jelly? What's your preferred bread?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a perfectly legitimate question. But just to get back to the show briefly, I loved this.
Let's get this train back in the track.
we might have to do like a food cast, because you and I have thoughts on food. You can pretty much come at us with any different type of food, and we can make content out of that, no problem. But my favorite, the highlight of the episode, at least to me, and please, this will be my last bit of thoughts on it, so let me know if you agree with me after.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
The way the show framed it, you could tell Joe Shane did not want, he wasn't excited to go out and re-sign Saquon. He kept, at least that's the way I read it, he kept saying we have so many needs elsewhere. He said we need to address the offensive line. He said it repeatedly throughout that. And then there's that scene where Mr. Mara comes in, and it is obvious Mr. Mara wants Saquon back. I mean, who wouldn't? Saquon is a talent. But I respected, at least from my interpretation of the show, Joe Shane saying, I understand, but we have a lot of needs to build this team, and we need to protect Daniel Jones so that we can see if Daniel's our guy. And that was kind of like my favorite part of the whole thing. I didn't think they'd get that much access, So I enjoyed this thoroughly. I mean, I'm looking forward to episode 2. How about yourself?
I'm also looking forward to episode 2, and I'll tell you why. So we already know what was coming in regards to Saquon Barkley, and you see that early in the episode. What the research on the different running backs who are free agents. Zach Moss is out there. Devin Singletary's out there. I believe they both wound up signing with the Giants.
Yeah,
if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
At least I know Devin Singletary did. They had some things to address with their defense, in particular the pass rush. The pass rush was 29th overall last year. They only had 34 sacks last year. That's even with Kayvon Thibodeau at edge, and Dexter Lawrence in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And they're finishing 29th in the league in sacks. On the flip side of it, they have to get their offensive line fixed, because they allowed the second most sacks in NFL history by an offensive line. It's disgusting.
Yeah, all you have to do, and maybe it's my bias, but if you go back to the only 10 good minutes segment that I've done on our YouTube channel, shameless plug for our YouTube channel, go check it out. And Ryan's done a lot of good stuff in there. But that Seattle game, the Seahawks, I watched a lot of Seahawk football last year. They had trouble pressuring the quarterback, but they destroyed Daniel Jones and the Giants in the back.
Or anyone who was back there, Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
Tommy DeVito, Cutlets. They allowed 85 sacks. The next closest was Carolina with 65, and Washington with 65. They had no offensive line.
Yeah. So,
and I know they're trying to fix their issue with the running game too, because that offense last year started and ended with Saquon Barkley.
Mhm.
And I had the feeling, and you could sense they were going to lose Saquon. You could sense off the bat when the reporters are asking them the question as they're cleaning up their locker the day after the season ended. Well, are you going to start negotiations as soon? Do you want negotiations to start as soon as possible? And Saquon's going, I don't know. And you could tell on the look on his face, he was gone.
Yeah.
He's gone.
Yeah.
He's gone. And the Giants had to come up with a contingency plan, whether it be in free agency or the draft, to replace him if he decided to leave. Now, at the same time, Joe Schoen screwed himself by signing Daniel Jones to that albatross of a contract. You can't give $40 million to an off-injured quarterback because he had one good year.
Yeah, it was last year. That was it, or the previous year.
2020. It was 2022. He had that great year that Saquon became one of the best running backs in the league. Daniel Jones had himself a great season, led the Giants to the playoffs, led them to a wild card win against those the worst 13-win team in NFL history, the Minnesota Vikings.
Oh man, we were going off on them,
and then they got absolutely squashed by the Eagles in the next round. From what I understand, we're going to go off air with the Instagram stream in just a moment, but you're welcome to come to the YouTube channel and the Twitter channel to tune into more, or you can listen to the podcast tomorrow or watch on replay on either or. So Instagram folks, thanks for sticking with us. If you watched on Instagram, we appreciate it.
Good night, Instagram.
Good night, Instagram. Next week on Saturday we'll try to be back on Facebook. This is just a one-off for tonight. But yeah, I mean, at least I'll give credit where credit's due with Joe Schoen in that they at least did their due diligence in case they knew Saquon was going to leave.
Yeah.
At the same time, I'm going, why aren't you restructuring Daniel Jones's contract so you can keep Saquon Barkley?
Yes.
This is why you're in the hole you're in. This is why you're in the dilemma you're in, because you decide to throw the bag at Daniel Jones and not fix who is arguably one of the top 5 running backs in the league.
Yeah, when he's healthy. And the thing is, I think people are a little scared off. I think running backs have been devalued to such a degree that when a running back is 27, 28, people are already looking to cast them off. You know, they're saying that their shelf life is so short, and it is. And it's a quarterback-driven league. It always has been. But Daniel Jones should not have commanded that type of money. And it's going to do crazy things to the quarterback market because, I mean, how much do you think Tua is going to get? How much do you think?
That dude's getting at least $55 million, and the Dolphins are going to screw themselves with their cap.
Yeah, that's what's going to happen because some of these quarterbacks, and no disrespect to them, but some of these quarterbacks who aren't quite as proven as others, Tua is not Patrick Mahomes, but he's going to get a bunch of money, and that's going to reset the quarterback market, and it's going to be market money that nobody, it's just going to keep going up and up to get yourself a competent quarterback. Notice how I didn't say superstar. I said competent quarterback. So that's going to affect the other positions in the league. Right.
And they, Shane's saying we got to fix our defensive line or offensive line. We got to look for a compliment for Dexter Lawrence. And you see later they trade for Brian Burns, and you see that interaction between Joe Schoen and Dan Morgan, who got to know each other when they were both with the Panthers. Joe Schoen as a scout and Dan Morgan as a player. They're obviously BFFs, and you see him at the Senior Bowl going, and you see Dan Morgan saying, "So, like a guy in an alley with an overcoat."
Oh yeah, with a bag of something.
Like, psst, hey, you, come here. Do you want Brian Burns for 2 first-round picks?
Yeah. He goes, Burns is available for 2 firsts. And Joe Schoen.
And then you hear, and then the best part was Liam Sherman going, Ooh, did you hear that? I love Liev Schreiber. He's just the best narrator. Oh my gosh,
he's crushing
so
it.
good.
He's crushing it. The only narrator that's better than Liev Schreiber is John Placenda, I think his name is.
Placenda, yep.
Yeah, he was, the autumn wind is a raider. I still think
The
about that.
autumn wind is a raider.
And I didn't see that obviously when it was out. I watched it years later, but that's still in my head, Anytime I hear that theme, his voice is still the one. It's like Kevin Conroy will always be the voice of Batman to me.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
But
yes.
Liev Schreiber is crushing it out there. Definitely adding his own dynamic to the show.
For sure. I mean, any Hard Knocks, period. I'm trying to remember who was the narrator for the NFL, the Arizona Cardinals, All or Nothing. I'm trying to remember who does the narration for the All or Nothing series.
I'll have to check that. Was that on Netflix?
That's Amazon.
Oh, Amazon. Okay. Apologies. I knew it wasn't HBO, but I couldn't remember. But yeah, I haven't watched that one. Would you recommend that one? Was it
Well, that was from a couple seasons ago.
Yeah.
But there's been different ones. There's been different narrators. So I'm trying to find out who they are. Ben Kingsley Sir Ben Kingsley.
Okay. That's a good choice.
Was the narrator for, I think it was Manchester City. Yeah, for Man City, because he grew up in Manchester, England.
That makes sense.
But I got to find out who the narrators for the other for all of them were. I think John Hamm. John Hamm was the narrator for the Arizona Cardinals in 2016. That's a good series. I like that series.
John Hamm, he would be a good pick. John Hamm,
Draper. Yep.
I still say just to get I guess I got on a Batman tangent. John Hamm would have been a great pick for Batman. Not because of how he could pull off Batman. I'm sure he would have figured it out in the movies, but John Hamm would have been the best Bruce Wayne out there.
He would have been a great Clark Kent too.
Oh yeah, could have worked. Yeah.
Yep,
could have worked.
But getting the train back on track here. Yeah, it was just really stupefying to see the logic here of trying to of deciphering the rationale of trying to keep Saquon Barkley for $12 million. He doesn't want $12 million.
Yeah.
But I'm trying to remember his contract, if I remember correctly. Saquon Barkley.
Oh, with the Eagles?
Contract with the Eagles.
Yeah,
he wound up getting 3 years, $37.75 million with $26 million guaranteed.
Yeah, so they basically, in guaranteed money, they more than doubled what was hypothetically thrown out there by the Giants in this. Now, again, you got to take it with...
The Giants were offering $23 million guaranteed.
Okay, all right. So they did come up a little bit, but still, you got to take this with a grain of salt. But that's why, as I said, my tone during the show, I don't think Joe Shane wanted to keep him. That was just my read on what was going on. We'll have to watch tonight.
Yeah, and in the midst of this, they're also hiring a new defensive coordinator because Wink Martindale.
Oh man, what a joke!
I can't remember. They said he quit, but I can't remember if he got. Actually, no, he did quit because 2 assistants got fired, and he was all poopy pants about it. So he decided to take his talents to Ann Arbor, and now he's the defensive coordinator at the University of Michigan. So they bring in Shane Bowen, who was let go in the by the Titans in the Mike Vrabel firing. And I like how they go into the room and they say, "Okay, what do you need? How can we fit? Well, we're doing the same scheme as we did before, but this is what I need. I need a pass rusher. I also need to see if we can all right, let's figure out ways to use Isaiah Simmons in this defense. All right, we'll put him in a nickel package, and then we'll make him like a free I can't remember the term for a third down tight linebacker.
Oh,
I'm trying to remember the term, but I can't remember the term.
Is it spy?
Not spy. It's but it'll come to me, but I can't remember what it was. But But no, they're ton of Shane Bowen, who's actually a pretty good defensive coordinator in his own right. But unfortunately, he was a victim of circumstance in Tennessee when Mike Vrabel got the old heave-ho, which a lot of fans are still upset about.
Yeah, Vrabel needs a job. You know,
Yes.
he should be coaching a team.
But hey,
sure.
if I'm getting a sever, if they're letting me go and they're still paying my contract, I'm not going anywhere. I mean, Adam Gase is still getting money from the New York Jets, and he's coaching high school football in Michigan.
Yeah, I mean,
Allegedly.
it's kind of like some of those wrestlers when WCW was acquired by WWF.
Yep.
You know, Kevin Nash straight up says in a recent documentary I watched, he said Turner paid me more to sit home, so why am I? You know,
Yeah.
He's like, I'll sit back and collect my money. I was older, you know, so can't fault him for that.
Yep. Exactly. All right. Actually, before we go on to our last subject for tonight, just want to take one more quick visit to the comment section. Dave saying, "Ha." I can't remember which comment he was laughing at, but
It might have been the grandpa marmalade thing I was
saying. He also says he's also said I've had peanut butter, either peanut butter and marmalade or raspberry preserves or honey. So it's not bad, but it's better than PBJ and fluff. So you're not a fan of Fluffernutter, huh?
Yeah, I don't like Fluffernutter either. I'm with him there.
Yeah. And Kevin Wilson of Belly Up Fantasy Sports. Again, Mr. Wilson, if you're available on Saturday, we'd love to have you on for special for Saturday brunch. We'll talk about who's the better Wilson, Zach or Russell.
Wilson on Wilson.
Wilson versus Wilson. So he writes in and says, I get it about running backs, but how many can catch and run like Barkley? Not a whole lot.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot. And that seems to be the trend with running backs, is that they want somebody who can catch out of the backfield.
Yeah.
So yeah. Sucks for the Giants, but they also can get Zach Moss, and Zach Moss is a heck of a blocking back. So good for them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, our last subject for the night. We need to have a prayer circle for the New York Yankees. And they had a rough June. They finished one game over 500 in June. Injuries started to accumulate. And that rough June has carried into July.
Yeah.
And as we record, it is currently the bottom of the eighth, and the Yankees are down 5-3 against the Tampa Bay Rays. So this is a rough spot for the Yankees, and I can pinpoint a couple of things as to why they're having such a rough month.
Lay it on me.
Well, one of them being injuries.
Yeah.
Giancarlo Stanton's made his annual trip to the DL, his eighth. We knew that. Of course, we knew that happened. Eighth trip in 6 years. Juan Soto has cooled off considerably. The injury to Anthony Rizzo, he's out for another couple of weeks, but they bring up Ben Rice, who's been pretty solid.
Yeah, oh yeah.
But I think this is a very controversial take.
All right.
I think the return of Garrett Cole messed up with the mojo of the starting rotation.
Yeah, Luis Gil has not been the same since Garrett Cole returned, and also Garrett Cole has come back, and he has not looked good so far.
No. So let's dive into this a little bit, and we'll do a prayer circle. We might even sage the room when it comes to the Yankees. But yeah, I mean, I think about it this way. Garrett Cole comes back. It seems like the entire pitching staff has decided to just take a vacation. Luis Gil, not as dominant as he's been. Carlos Rodon has regressed back to his 2023 days.
He's been up and down. Clark Schmidt, not as effective as he was before. Trying to think of who else. Nestor Cortez. He's also cooled off a bit since a hot start. Is it primarily the pitching, or is it the offense, or is it just all aspects of the game? I feel like it's both, and I have not watched as many Yankee games as I would have liked to recently, and I don't really have a good reason why for that. But I will say, I said it. I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but I said to Levesque when they were on their hot streak, I said the offense is going to slump. It's coming. It always happens. And it just so happens that the pitching is kind of regressing when the offense is slumping as well. Ideally, you want, when one of them cools, you want the other one to pick it up. And the Yankees, especially interdivisionally, they're getting destroyed right now in the division.
Awful against the AL East, the rest of the AL East, with the exception of the Rays, and even they're losing to them. They're losing to them tonight.
Yeah, and the Rays are not the team they have been for a while now, for the last majority of seasons now. Long are the days gone of the terrible Devil Ray teams. The Rays are one of the better organizations in baseball, especially when you factor in their payroll and everything else they have to deal with. But they are not that team this year, and they're still giving the Yankees fits.
Yeah. Oh, just an FYI, we're still on Instagram. I just realized that. I'm looking at the live video on our Instagram page, and it's still going. So hey,
all right.
If you're on Instagram and you join us, just leave us a comment, give us a like, all that stuff.
Yeah, let us know.
Yeah. And here's the most interesting part. This afternoon, Brian Cashman joined the team on the trip to Tampa Bay.
Oh.
Which could mean a couple of things. It could mean that he's going to evaluate what their players are doing and figure out what he can do to add players at the trade deadline, or Aaron Boone could be out of a job if this doesn't go, if they're still losing, because they lost the last 7 or 8 series in a row. Yeah. Ever since they won their series against Kansas City, and they would have swept Kansas City with the 4 games they played in Kansas City, if Clay Holmes hadn't blown that save in the 9th inning. Yep. Ever since then, it's been a tailspin. They've lost their last, I think, 7 or 8 series. They've gone through a rough patch with playing mostly American League East opponents. They got swept by Cincinnati at home.
Yeah.
How do you explain that?
That doesn't happen. And Andrew Abbott dominated them. I believe it was last night. Yes. Andrew Abbott is again, I'm limited with my baseball knowledge, but Andrew Abbott is a fly ball pitcher, and he plays in Cincinnati. It's not a pitcher friendly park. No. And the numbers indicate that he should not have had the day against the Yankees that he's had, but he to his credit, he's been doing it to other teams too. When you expect, okay, Andrew Abbott's going to kind of blow up here, he's pitched well, and he dominated the Yankees last night. He really had movement on his pitches. Everything was going, and it's just the Yankees are in a tough spot right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And this is what their schedule looks like for the rest of the month. They're at Tampa for this series. Then they travel to the Baltimore to play the Orioles in a 3-game series there. Then you have the All-Star break, get a moment to breathe. Then they're at home against the Rays, at home for a 2-game series against the Mets. Then they're at Boston, and then at Philadelphia. And then the month is over. You have the trade deadline the 30th, so you can add some pieces. Then August looks considerably easy. They don't play any divisional opponent. Actually, they have 1 series against the divisional opponent against the Blue Jays. That's the first weekend in August. And then from there, they have the Angels for a series, the Rangers, the White Sox, the Tigers, Guardians, Rockies, Nationals, and Cardinals, which theoretically, if you look at August might be a good month to get back on track. But let's figure out what's going to happen now.
Yeah.
Because right now, they're slumping.
Oh, yeah.
It look good. And we're us as Yankee fans, we're having a ball in April and May. June comes along, we hit a wall. July comes along, we're still at that wall trying to figure out how to get around it instead of maybe possibly getting through it. Then we got August and September coming up. That's when we really get into the thick of the baseball season.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the games ratchet up in intensity there. And, you got to figure that they'll turn it around at some point. But I'll tell you another thing I don't like. I don't like Aaron Judge's representation. Somebody in his circle, was it a trainer of his? Something. he said comments that basically amounted to Aaron Judge is hitting like an MVP, and the rest of the team around him is terrible while he's doing this. And Aaron Judge is going to slump as well. As good as he is, it happens. It always happens. And so I don't like when somebody in the player's personal circle comes out and basically calls out the rest of the team, because baseball is a long season and there's going to be slumps in there. So it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way.
Oh, I have some breaking news, Dustin.
Oh, all right.
Let's use that breaking news stinger.
Yeah, let's get it out break the dust off it.
Yankees lose 5-3. There we go. Here we go again. So, all right, let's do a couple more comments before we get out of here. Kevin saying, every team goes through rough patches. They'll be fine.
Mm-hmm.
I hope you're right. I mean, the one positive you could take out of it is that they're kind of in the driver's seat right now for the wild card. But I would hate to lose out to Baltimore. And I would hate to especially lose out to Boston.
Oh, yeah.
Right behind them right now. And Playmaker telling us Rays just defeated the Yankees 5-3. Yeah, we know, Playmaker. I just said that. Did you hear the breaking news bumper? Here, I'll play it again. We love you, Playmaker, but thanks for letting us know. All right, we're going to get out of here. Before we get out of here, just want to remind you about our Twitter, our social media accounts, Twitter, Instagram, and the scarcely used TikTok. It's at NoCardsREQ. Facebook.com/@NoCardsREQ. YouTube.com/@NoCardsREQ. If you joined us on Instagram tonight, we appreciate you joining us for the first time we've done a stream on Instagram. And we hope to do this again in the very near future. On Saturday, we'll go back to Facebook just because just want to see what the just kind of gauge the audience in terms of what's out there on Instagram. But in the meantime, if you wouldn't mind, if you're watching the replay or if you're watching live, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to all of our social media channels right down here below. And also, if you're watching on Rumble, which will be available the next day at 8 a.m. Eastern, welcome you to follow there too. Also, again, just want to ask for those of you who are promotion hoes out there, stay off our comments page. We'd appreciate it.
Oh, man. A lot of that going on. Going on. I've seen it.
Yeah. On the podcast side, subscribe to the podcast on whichever podcast platform you prefer. Rate and review. A 5-star rating would be helpful. And if you're on a platform where you can review our podcast, we might even read it on the air. That'll do it for another edition of No Credentials Required, where you don't need a press pass. That's right, you don't need a press pass to talk sports. We are presented proudly by the Belly Up Sports Media Network. For Dustin Henry, I'm Ryan McCarthy. We'll be back on Saturday to do another edition of This Week in Sports Ball, and hopefully we'll have a special guest by then. Until then, we will talk to you soon.
Y'all know how to post videos to Facebook? Good night, everybody.